chair report, the final board chair report from this board chair. I have to say, writing it has given me a really nice moment to reflect on the prior 2 years and all that we together on this board and in this room have accomplished and all the connections we have made. As most of you know, my very first experience with the CSU was in 1971 when I began my master's degree program in English at San Francisco State, which, as it is now, was a marvelous institution, albeit a bit tumultuous at times, but it was a great place to further my education. And by the way, in honor of my master's degree in English, I have embedded 5 literary references in my board chair report. Anybody who can get all 5 of them, and I'll warn you when they're coming up, will get an unnamed prize from me. So in those 2 years when I was getting my master's degree, I learned so much, the difference between less and fewer, between literally and figuratively, and from a famous treatise, which I believe should be on the desk of every English major, I learned the marvelous, albeit somewhat ironic phrase, eschew obfuscation, which of course I strive to do in every one of my reports. That was number 1, by the way, if you're writing them down. Mostly at the CSU, I learned curiosity, and I do believe it's something you can learn and that can be fostered. And with that, the entire world of continuous learning opened up to me. I've been grateful every day for the education I received at this great university, and I never cease to be impressed at how the CSU continues to change lives, as it did mine, and communities, and indeed, with those lives and communities, the world. In the past 2 years as board chair, my eyes have opened up so much wider to the, ready? Movable feast that is the CSU. Got it? Although not perfectly ordered, I thought I would try to summarize the incredible experience I've been privileged to have as your board chair in a top 10 list a la David Letterman, but true to my commitment to eschew obfuscation, I've boiled it down to a top 5 list. So here are my top 5 reasons that I have loved being the board chair. Number 5, the board. I mean, what an amazing event that was this morning to get that award. I heard us described as creative, curious, again, innovative, collaborative. I could not agree more. It's always a delight in my report to describe some of the goings-on of our trustees. This past 2 months, like every month, has been no different. I spent a day up in Sacramento with Larry Norton several weeks ago, as fierce an advocate for the CSU as anybody could want. I know that many of you have been up there making the same pitch for this institution, Jane Carney most recently, and hopefully to a successful result, because as someone once inscrutably said, ready? Hope is the thing with feathers. I hope you got that one. Just last week, I spent an incredible evening at an event where women leaders of California were being honored. One of our awardees, and is that a great picture, was our very own Latifah Simon. I only wish I could convey to you how rich and articulate, how inspired and inspiring her speech was. We were all standing in awe. It reminded me of another speech I once heard where the speaker said, ready? We are the ones we have been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. Latifah, you got it? Number 4 on my list is the Chancellor's staff. The brilliance and commitment and attentiveness to the needs of this university could not be better exemplified than it is in Lauren Blanchard, Steve Relier, Garrett Ashley, Andy Jones, Melissa Bard, Larry Mandel, Lars Walton, Michelle Kiss, and their respective staffs, who are also truly amazing. Each of them has listened to my crazy ideas and jumped on calls with me and stretched to get me data and information, and all the while showing me infinite respect and most of all patience. And I know they do this not just for me, they do it for every one of our trustees. They have embodied for me a literary phrase that to me says so much. Number 5, only connect. Only connect the prose and the passion, and both will be exalted. Number 3 on my list, the presidents. I wish I had my binoculars so I could see you better. I've had the joy of spending time with our 23 presidents on their campuses, on our Wednesday morning walk, that was great this morning, in the corridors, and increasingly in the bathrooms of this building. Every occasion I've had to interact with one of our presidents, I've come away in amazement. Amazed with the perfect balance of empathy and intellect that they bring to their extraordinarily complex jobs. Amazed at the energy they bring to their positions. Amazed at how they work with each other as a team for the benefit of this entire system. I've come to expect that I will learn something remarkable from one of our presidents whenever I speak to him or her, and they never disappoint. Maybe some have been a little too frank with me when responding to my questions about how our board is doing. You know who you are. But I know I will never get less than a straight story when I'm talking to a president. They are collectively and individually a marvel. Number 2 on my top 5 list, the other reports which follow on to mine. I'll get to the chancellor in a moment, but first you need to know that you have to bring your A game when you're going to be followed by Chris Miller. You've disoriented me by sitting over there today. Maggie White, Manolo Morales, who doubles down by accompanying his wonderful report with a presentation by one of our inspiring alums. I say A game because that's what the Warriors will bring tonight. Yes? And because I know it gives the chancellor a thrill whenever I use a sports metaphor. These faculty, student, and alumni reports are, of course, just an outline of the highlights of the work and activities of these 3 enormous constituents of the CSU family, but they are delivered so beautifully and with such care that you cannot help but kvel is the word, right, Deborah? Kvel when you hear these reports. And that brings me to number 1 on my top 5 list. Certainly one of the things I've loved most about being the board chair has been the opportunity to partner with and learn from, and sometimes tease, our chancellor. He got back at me last night though, didn't he? I could provide a list as long as our capital outlay plan of the attributes and capabilities and exquisite leadership that Tim demonstrates on a daily basis. It is like being in a master class sitting at this seat. You know, I was once at a 10K race. I was watching, not running, but I saw a man who was getting ready to run this race, and I was pretty sure that he was eligible for all those senior discounts that I am now receiving. He was not a youngster, but he was wearing a t-shirt that on the front said, "Someday I will not be able to do this." But on the back it said, "Today is not that day." Today is never that day for our chancellor, and I hope it never will be. The board chair report is about telling the CSU story, and I've been privileged and honored to deliver that report each meeting as chair, and today I am privileged and honored to hand my beloved gavel over to our new board chair to be Trustee Adam Day and his trustee sidekick, Lily Kimbell. And I know both will serve this board and the CSU well. Thank you to all. Chancellor White, that concludes my final board chair report.